Hi, this is Pastor Dave Holden, and we've been going through a series on what we call shape because we believe that you have been shaped for significance by God. That word shape is an acronym and it stands for spiritual gifts, heart, abilities, personality, and your life experiences. We've been talking about personality, and this is a part 2 to that personality question because I want you to see for yourself just how you have been so intricately and wonderfully made. We talked about the complexity of personality, and today I want to illustrate that for you. Do you remember what it says in Job chapter 10, verse 8? Your hands molded me and shaped me. Part of that shape is your personality that's unique to you. Now, if you've ever taken a personality test, you will find that personality tests always have 4 possible outcomes. It might be 4 animal names, or it might be 4 initials. It might be 4 Greek terms. But no matter what it is, all of the personality or temperament analyses that you can take all have 4 components to it. And so today I want to spend just a few minutes telling you why that's true. Maybe you will see yourself and be able to self-identify. For another reason, you might be able to see the people in your life that you know and love, but sometimes you just get a little testy or want to fight with. You can understand them just a little bit better, and I hope that that will all take place because of our time together today. Now, let me show you how this works and why things all fall into naturally 4 different components. Here we go. Well, if you take this whiteboard and we're going to put it into 4 different quadrants, those 4 different quadrants are like a mathematical grid, an XY plane. And on one side of the XY plane, you've got infinity back and forth to 2 extremes. And then you've got the ups and downs of infinity. All these choices, they take thousands and thousands of responses to these sociological tests that they give so that they can crunch numbers until they come to such a point that they find different categories of people always answer the questions in just about the same way. That's why maybe you've been surprised like me. I've taken these tests and then it identifies me. I read the description and I go, that's me. How could they do such a thing? Well, it's because they've done it thousands, well, probably hundreds of thousands of times with different people until they can get you pegged pretty well. So here we are. We've assigned numerical values to all of the answers. We've added them up, tallied them, and you can find yourself mathematically at any one of these different quadrants, and some farther away from the midpoint, some closer. It's just like a grid that we used to learn about mathematics while we were in school. Now, what does the grid define? Well, the first thing is you find people that are task-driven. They just want to get the job done. Then there are those that are driven by their relationships with other people. They're people. There's people that just like to get the job done, and then there's others that want to spend their time with people. Now, what does that play against in this grid? Well, you have people that want to achieve goals, and you have other people that want to do nothing but follow the rules, or what we call the process. And these 4 simple definitions will help to define where people fit on this grid. So let's look at the 4 different temperaments using what has been known as DISC, D-I-S-C. Again, 4 responses. Why? Here we go. Let's describe them. In the first grid, we have the person who would be described as a high D personality. And the D stands for the word dominance. That's what that measures. And a dominant person is a person who is very self-assured. They know where they're going. Why? Because they are task-oriented, goal-oriented. They want to get to the goal no matter what. They will finish the job. When I see that job, I'm going to chase after it, and I'm going to make it happen, and nothing's going to stop me. This person is a dominant person. Now, the next is the high I person. This measures what sociologists call influence. Influence. They have a high regard for people, and at the same time, they want to achieve goals. So these people tend to be very inspirational, and they say, come on everybody, let's work together. We can do this. We can get the job done. We can make the goal, but let's do it together. They're very influential in that way. Letter S. The letter S is a term that defines what we call steadiness. And this is a person that has a high regard for people, and at the same time, they have a high regard for the process that must take place, the rules. And these people will say, yeah, I want to achieve the goal. I want to get the job done, but at the same time, I want to tell you something. I don't want to break any of the rules. I want to do things right. I want to follow procedures and process. We'll talk about that again in just a second. And then the letter C. The letter C stands for a temperament that is, we're going to call it careful. Sometimes it's called, the more scientific name would probably be compliant. But we're just going to call it careful. Because the careful personality, sure, they want to get the job done, but they want to follow all of the rules. So they tend to be very, very particular in how they do things. They want to make sure that procedures, process is even paramount to the goal. If you achieve the goal but take any shortcuts along the way, oh, that's not going to be good. And so the careful person does like to follow the rule. Let's look at what kind of a temperament that might be. Temperament might be, here under dominance, I would call this person a general, okay? And this general might say, hey, I've got an idea. I've got this figured out. Follow me. Full steam ahead. We can do this. Nothing's going to stop us. We can do it, but follow me. Charge. So they're like a general. Goal-oriented, task-driven. Then this person, they say, oh yeah, hey everybody, let's get together and we're going to achieve some goals here today. And so we're going to work as a team. This person really functions as a coach. A coach. They say, come on, we can do it. Hey, let's not let anything stop us. Together, we're always better. Here we go. Let's go. And the coach personality is generally defined in that letter I. What about steadiness? Here's someone who likes people, and at the same time, they like to follow all the rules. Well, it's like, I'm going to give the temperament of a clerk. What do I mean by that? What if you were to go into the grocery store and you're talking to the checker because you know her very well? Let's make it a her this week. You know her very well. And because of that, you have great conversations. And every week, oh, how's the kids? How's the family? How's your wife? Oh, things going good at church and the job? Yeah, okay, it's good to see you. And you say, oh, boy, you know what? I left my wallet in the car. Can I write you a check? She goes, oh, yeah, sure, you can write me a check. And then she says, can I see your ID? And you go, well, my wallet's in the car. I don't have my ID here. She goes, well, no ID, no check cashing. He goes, you know me. We've been talking. We've been having this. No, I have to have your ID. A person who is very polite, they know you, very personable, and at the same time, quite efficient because they follow all of the rules. Aha, the letter C. The letter C is a person, I'm just going to illustrate here with what I call the bottom line. They say, okay, I've heard all the rah-rah, you want me to follow you, letter D. Oh, yeah, and now you're a cheerleader, letter I. Okay, big deal. Okay, steadiness, you want to keep things balanced and everybody, happy with each other. But all I want is the bottom line. What do I do? Where do we go? What's your expectations? What's going to happen? And those are the 4 different personality types. Let me illustrate those for you once again, and then we'll talk about the way they communicate. Okay, so there's an opening, and it's on Christmas break, and everybody's coming home from school. There's an opening in a department store. And all of these candidates go because they're trying to get the job. And they say, okay, who wants to work in the gift wrapping department over here? And who wants to work out on the sales floor with the people? Because you could sell shoes. We've got an opening there. One person is going to say, hey, get me out with the people. I'd rather be out with the people all day. Another person says, I don't want the people. Just put me in the back. I'll wrap the gifts all day. That's the difference between someone who's driven by people and relationships and someone that says, just give me a job and let me get the job done. Does that make sense? Okay, let's illustrate another one. Let's go back to Christmas break again. That's always a good time of year for these kinds of illustrations. So this guy, he gets up on Christmas morning, and little boy comes running down the stairs, and there's a big box there. Oh, it's so exciting. He rips off the paper and he looks at it and he goes, oh boy, look, it's a brand new bike. I've got a brand new bike. And so he says, Dad, put it together for me. It's still in the box. So the dad comes and he gets a hold of the box. He rips it open and he pulls out all the pieces and he puts it down on the floor. And as everything's falling out, it's all over the place. And he begins to look and he realizes he doesn't have any tools really to put it together with. So he goes to the kitchen drawer. He gets a butter knife. He takes that butter knife and with nothing more than a butter knife and maybe a book and a brick and a rubber band, he puts together this bike. It takes him 45 minutes and the bike is up, it's running. The kid gets on it. He's driving. Everything seems to be pretty good. Now, there's 2 leftover parts. He couldn't quite figure out where to put those parts, but everything's working. And he says, and guess what? I didn't have to look at the instructions one time. Who's that? Well, that's the dominant personality. It's someone that says, I can get this job done and nothing's going to stop me. And I don't need a map. I don't need plans. I don't need tools. Just set me loose and I'll get it done. That's a high D or dominant personality. Okay, here's another person. Same Christmas morning, same scenario. We're going to make it a little girl this time. Little girl comes running down the stairs. Oh, Daddy, look. Oh, it's my bike. Please, Daddy. Put it together, put together my bike. So the dad goes, sure, honey. So he goes and he gets his toolkit and he pulls out a pair of pliers. He takes the pliers and very gently he opens up the box by taking out those huge staples. He opens up the end of the box, pours out onto the floor. He pours the bike. It's in this plastic bag. He takes his scissors and he cuts the bag open, slips out the bike, all of the different bolts and nuts and the instructions. They're all right there. And so he opens up the instructions and says, I should have 40 different bolts. He begins counting the bolts, the nuts, all of the fasteners. And he says, okay, I've got the tools, I've got the plan. And he goes, okay, step 1. He starts putting the bike together. Step 2, step 3. Finally, the bike is all put together. Now it's taken him 2 hours and 40 minutes to put that bike together, but it's perfect. No leftover parts. Okay, he's perfect. He's done a great job. His little girl's out there riding it. She's so happy. Now he's not done yet. He goes back to that box that he opened up so carefully, takes the big plastic bag, puts it back and puts all of the leftover pieces into that plastic bag, wraps it up, puts it in the box, and he takes it down to the recycling center. He's really doing this right from beginning to end. What's that temperament? Well, that temperament is this guy right here. Very, very careful. Step by step, by step, by step. Followed all the rules, the process to get a task done. Okay, so, okay, here let's bring it down to the church for just a second. So here's the guy, the pastor. And the pastor goes, I've had a vision. I've had a vision. I was alone. I was thinking about things. I wrote it all down. I believe that God wants us to build a new building, a new church building. It's going to be magnificent. Here's some of the drawings that I made. And I believe that this is the will of God and nothing's going to stop it. Okay, his dominance is really, really starting to show, right? Okay, so now what happens is the president of the elder board or the deacon board, whatever you have in your church, is actually high C, compliant. He goes, Pastor, wait just a minute. Pastor, we haven't done any discussion on this. And I think that it's such a big thing that the leaders here should all get involved and kind of put their suggestions in. And beyond that, we don't have any environmental impact study. We haven't had the plans approved. We have no permits, no permitting. I say no until we do things right. The pastor responds, he goes, what are you talking about? I have been given charge of this church by God Almighty himself, and he's telling me, go forward, build this church. Anything less than that is strictly a lack of faith. High C guy goes, no, I'm not doing it, because if we can't do it right, it's not going to bring glory to God anyway. So step by step, we need to go through this. And I think the board will back me on that. And if we need to, we're going to have to take a vote, because that's part of the procedure as well. Can you imagine? These guys are going, why? Who's right and who's wrong? Well, they're both pretty right, and it could be very wrong, especially if they lose their relationship over this. And I can't tell you how many times I've been in situations of counseling in a church, and it's just a matter of temperament. Once people can see one another, things get a lot better. Let me show you just a second. Let me illustrate for you how people communicate, okay? Here's the dominant person communicating, and I call this I language, okay? They communicate like this. I have a dream. I see things. I figured it out. I can do it. And they talk a lot from their head, and they use the word I. I can do it. I've figured it out. Listen to what I think, okay? All right, now look at the letter I. The letter I person says, we. He says, hey, do you know what? I think that we can do it together. I think that we can make a big, big difference in the way things happen. And the letter S person says, well, what do you think about it? What would you like to see? How many of you have spoken into this project? Okay? And the letter C person says, I don't care about the I, we's, and you's. I have one thing on my mind. What the heck do you want me to do, and how is it going to get done? Give me the bottom line. And these people can be very, very tough. They just want the answer to the question. Another way of looking at this is that sometimes people in high D, they speak with what I would call head language. Okay, there's there's a head. Okay, and they say I know, I think, I've figured it out. Okay, and then the coach, he uses heart language. I hope, I wish, I dream. It's very high I. I now stands for inspirational. But what about the S? The S person says, oh, you know what? Do you know what it's like for me? And I'm going to draw a little window here. I'm going to put some curtains on it too. I'm going to make it really nice. Okay, so here's a window. It's got some curtains on it. Okay, because this becomes an illustration, a window that you can look into. And often they will use the word, it's like. They'll say, do you know what? It's like. And they tell a story. They give an illustration. Why? Because they value people and they also value getting the processes done right. And so they want to illustrate it, to draw you into their world so that you really know them and they know you. Let's get along together. Let's get the job done. Okay, it's a little bit more than a coach, because a coach is still very much leading and saying, here's the team, let's go. And the high S person is really saying, hey, listen, if we're going to get this job done, we've got to understand each other. It's more of an advocate, you all. And then the letter C, once again, what are they looking for? Give me the bottom line. The bottom line. What are we going to do? What are we going to accomplish? Why? What's the difference? How are we going to make this work? And that person is often a little bit slower in their decision-making process. In fact, if you started here in the letter D, that person makes decisions the fastest, almost in a split second. The I thinks about them a little bit more, puts together the team. The S slows it down quite a bit, really thinks about it, ponders. And then the C person is very, very slow, very, very meticulous. So here you have the high D saying, let's go, we can do it. Don't hold me up. And the C is saying, wait just a minute. We've got to figure some things out. Now, the funny thing is that God often will put opposites together. It's not just on the church board, is it? But it's at home. And oftentimes, many, many times, husbands and wives don't get along well. What's it all about? Well, it's about temperament. It's about personality. Kids born in the same family. Sometimes you have brothers and sisters that are so close and say, oh, didn't they have lovely parenting? Well, you can have wonderful parents and the kids don't get along. Why? The temperament is just so different. The D and the C here, we call that a fire and ice relationship. Either it really works or it really does not work at all. And some relationships are like that. It's just the way it works out. So what do? We have to learn to describe and to see this kind of a chart, maybe even in our mind, so that when we're talking to someone and we don't really understand them, I can step back and I can think about things and I go, you know what, that sounded very personal. It kind of hurt me. And then you just realize, hey, that's just the way they are. That's the temperament. It's not having anything to do with trying to be rude or hurting. They just went fast because they go fast. Okay, you ask them to slow down. Now, if only one person is trying to understand the other, that's a problem. But if both people are trying to understand each other, work with one another, you've got it made. If I go to a foreign country and I can't speak the language, it's very hard for me to communicate. The same is true if I'm a high D in my personality, and it's going to be hard for me to communicate to a high S or an I or a C. I've got to learn how to be bilingual. You never change your mother tongue. You can learn a second language. Sure you can. But you're going to have to learn a secondary personality. Not to change the color of your personality type, but in order to understand where someone else is coming from. And when you can understand in that way, it unlocks a whole world to you. Blessed are the peacemakers, right? And God says, forgive one another, love one another. And I would just say what I've learned about temperament, learn to work with one another. Well, I hope that this has been fun for you today. It's been fun for me to present. This is in our series called Shape. You are shaped for significance, and we talked about personality in our last session, and now I've just kind of rounded it out a little bit. It's a little bit informal here, but I wanted you to understand where these things come from. If you want to catch up, or if there's any of the talks in the Shape series that you've missed, there will be a total of 6. An introduction and an overview, and then the letter S, spiritual gifts, H, heart, A, abilities, natural abilities, P, your personality, and then E will be our final session, your life experiences. And I believe that these studies are really going to make a difference to you. If you'd like to get caught up, review them, see them again, or see one that you haven't seen yet, go to my YouTube channel, and it's David Holden on YouTube. All right, well, it's been wonderful to be with you, and I might have stumbled on my words a little bit because this is informal, and I noticed there's a little bit of a glare. Oh, no, it's not off my head. No, don't even say that, but on the whiteboard. But thank you for being a part of this informal talk. God bless you, God keep you, and I pray that you would understand yourself and one another better, that you can know the very best of life. All right, God bless you.